Welcome to Watermark's Church Leadership Podcast, a conversation with church leaders for church leaders. I'm your host, John McGee. Thanks so much for joining us today. Well, hey, welcome back, friends. I am joined in the studio today by two of my friends, Joey Tisdale, who is the director of Newly Married Ministries. Did I get that right, Joey?
Yep,
yes,
you nailed it.
A mouthful. And Braun Brown, who is the director of our Watermark Institute. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, John. It's good to be here.
Good to be here.
It is, God, I'm laughing already. So you can't see these gentlemen. One of them is very much in shape, and
thank you, John.
One of them is very funny. That you just heard from
Joey,
Braun.
That should be encouraging for you. On the
I
funny
received
side.
that affirmation. Thank you.
It's fun to be with you guys always. We were just cutting up before we hit record. That we probably should have just recorded that and issued that instead.
Hey, John, can I ask something real quick before we get started?
No.
Where is Tarno? This thing, what has happened to this podcast?
You're here to pull us out of the gutter.
Yes.
So
I mean, he still does this with you, right?
it's been like, 2-3 years? Yeah, I think.
Well, that reminds me, that's the last time I think I got asked to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
There's a reason.
So I'm a little out of touch. with
Braun,
what's
they've
going
been in
on.
my inbox consistently asking
I can't
for you.
imagine.
I couldn't.
Flagged for follow-up.
The
It's okay.
heat you were
Yeah.
getting on the interwebs to get me back on the
Truly,
show.
truly. I couldn't tell the people no anymore. I had to relent, and here we are. So, you guys did a talk at our church leaders conference, about creating culture, making, this place, specifically Watermark, a great place to work that people would want to work, and I thought we could just kind of revisit some of those thoughts today. And so, the big idea is that as a leader, you're not just tasked with producing, with creating things, with pulling things off, or watching the bottom line. You're also tasked with creating a culture that A, is effective, but B, that people want to work in, with, for. And so whether you're in a church, whether you're in a nonprofit, whether you are in business, culture has a lot to do with how much people want to use their gifts, their time, their one short life with you or not. And so, it's a good diagnostic question right now. Do you want to work at the place you work? Do the people around you, do they want to work at the place they work? Do they want to, or would they invite their friends? Would they invite their friends to work there? Would they go, you don't want to be here? Or would they literally pick up the phone and call 20 people they know to work here? So much of that has to do with culture. And you guys talked about some things that you were looking to address, in our organization, and you chose to do so with kind of cultural moves. And so anytime you're trying to address something, you could create a policy, you could create a rule. You will always win long-term if you can create a positive culture around whatever it is you're trying to address. So, Braun, I don't know if that's a fair setup. This is also part of your job now. Actually, it's written into your job description, just think about culture. So before we jump in, why don't you frame it for us? Tell us what was in your head as you thought about this talk, as you thought about some of the things we've done around here, and even how we should think about kind of creating culture in a place that people love to work, to invest, spend their life in.
Yeah. So when I got put in charge of the culture side of our staff, what I started thinking about was a simple question of, hey, how do we create a place where people would say, I can't believe I get to work here? Mm-hmm. And that was really the heartbeat of it, is how do we do the little things that would make people go, man, that's an added blessing. Ministry's already a blessing. It's amazing to do the Lord's work. But what if they also said, but I can't believe it's just fun being at work, or there's other pieces of, I have friendships there. There's a culture of where we're bearing each other's burdens. All that kind of thing was part of what I was thinking about. And so we started thinking about, for this talk specifically, hey, what are the things that people are facing in ministry that we could be helpful with when they're ministry, things like, hey, ministry is discouraging, ministry can be heavy, ministry can be hard. And so we all recognize those things. And so we were thinking, how do we do something that would counteract that and be a blessing to them?
I love it. So in a for-profit world, you could do all kinds of things. You could create, you see this in Silicon Valley, right? You've got these private chefs that, at lunchtime you'd roll down there and all this kind of stuff. And so, I'm sure you tried to slide that in the budget and got nixed on that.
I've said that in front of the elders, and they're like, probably not this time.
Not this year anyway. So there's some things that you just can't do. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything. And you still have so much ability to bring about change and create a place that people would just, I love what you said, they're just thrilled. I'm so glad I get to work here. I don't have to. I get to.
Right.
And I love that that's part of actually your job. There's lots of things we could ask you to do. You're really gifted, Braun. You too, to a lesser extent, Joey. Just kidding. Just
my age is showing. My youth is coming out.
And I love that Blake wrote into your job description, hey, you know what? I want you to pay attention to this culture thing. So let's take a few of these here, and Braun and Joey talk about how you guys think about those. But again, we'll give you some specifics. Sometimes the specifics at our place or anyone else's place can be really helpful, and you can just take these as a one-to-one and put them into place in your organization. Sometimes they'll just kind of put your brain on the mental treadmill, and you can think, Hallie, I could do something like that. It wouldn't work. That wouldn't work, but it makes me think of whatever. And then you can, just think about your place. So think about right now as Braun and Joey talk, what's some of the things that are difficult at your place? What are some of the things that some of the people that you lead with or you serve with or you volunteer with that they're up against that you really could address? So Braun, you came up with a list of 3 here. And so let me remind you of one of them, and then I'd love your thoughts on it. So you just said that ministry can be discouraging, and we wanted to create a culture that was encouraging. So what do you mean by that? What did you see? What did you mean by discouraging? And then what have you been doing? What have you been leading us to do to make this an encouraging place?
Yeah, so I just thought about the day-to-day stuff of ministry. You're getting an email where someone's complaining about something that didn't go right. Rarely are we getting communication, especially I was in the student ministry world for a long time, and I never had an 8th grade kid come up to me, that message really blessed me, Braun, and boy, the God has really blessed you with the gift of speaking. They didn't come up and thank me.
Yeah.
And that's true. Most of the time, a lot of the communication we get as a staff can be, these are the things that we're not liking.
Yeah.
And so how do we create a culture of where we're encouraging each other, reminding each other, hey, this is what we're seeing, and the way that God is using you. So the other day at our staff prayer, that's what we did for a lot of our staff prayer. We just let guys stand up and encourage other people specifically, and it's a high value for us. So we've had to get creative how we think about that, and it's what we came up with. I think people could come up with something even better. But what we did was we decided to have socks as one of our things.
Stay with us. Don't turn this off.
Yeah, everybody went, I'm going to shut this one down. So we decided to buy socks, and we have a simple little thing we're doing called Knock My Socks Off. And it was just an easy way for us to give someone something tangible, to remind them that we saw something in them that was encouraging, and we were encouraged by them. And so what they were doing was knocking our socks off. It was exceptional in the way they were doing their job and the way they were loving people, the way they were pastoring. So every little bit we try to give some socks away. And we've done that every little bit. At staff prayer, we might do it at our staff lunch. We might, anytime we see something come up, some of our leadership team will say, hey, I'd love to give some socks away, which is a weird thing to say, but it has been kind of a fun thing. And then,
do you want to talk about just how high dollar these socks are?
Oh, these are nice socks, man. When I slipped a pair of those on, I thought I'll never go back to anything else.
When your toes went through
they're not that nice. Yeah. No one's going to wear. No one's going to wear these socks, but it's more symbolism, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Symbolism.
No one. What you were going to say something?
Well, they're. I see most of them. The people pin them up on the wall in their offices.
Yes.
They're never on their feet. Yes. It's always like hung up somewhere that we can see.
You don't put your stinky feet in these.
They wouldn't fit and they would rip. Yeah. So, but it's really fun. It's this is such an example of something small can have such an inordinate impact and create this culture that you're talking about. So, just to set the scene, we're in one of our staff, meetings or prayer or something like that, and basically, someone who's been around a while, so someone on senior leadership will say, "Hey, I want to give a pair of socks to somebody," and then you have some secret stash of socks. I always have to ask you for them. And then
they're in a vault.
You're the only one that knows the code. And so we ask you, and then we pull this, we just ask this person generally to stand up, and we just say, hey, this was the thing you did. And it was, this is what was the expectation, but boy, you went so far above and beyond. And then we say, whoever's name it is that we're, honoring, we say, and you knocked our socks off. And the people just go crazy. I mean, they just go nuts. And it really is, it's a badge of honor. It's not We don't have it built into our calendar. It's as needed. And then, no one wears them. They put them up. It's a real badge of honor in their in their cube or in their office. And the other thing I love about it, Bron, is that I don't ever remember giving a pair of socks to someone who would be in a more senior leadership position. And so oftentimes what happens, especially in a church, is all of the great stuff, all the encouragement kind of aggregates up to the senior pastor, and we just sit around in a circle and give these attaboys, and you forget about all the people that made each day, each event, each thing happen. And that's the other thing I love. It's the people who would never really be celebrated, and you do that, and it's really, really fun. So anyway, okay, that is a great example. What else are we doing around here?
Yeah, the other thing that I thought about was we do a 5-year brand, and it's just when someone's been on staff for 5 years, we give them a wooden board that a brand is put on that they can put on their wall, and on that wood, people will sign. They'll put some quality about that person. So they'll say they're encouraging, or they're great singer, or whatever it is. That could be attributes of that person. And then we, at our staff retreat, will have the director of that person stand up and share about what everybody wrote about this person. So who doesn't like to have people shower them with, even if they're one-word encouragements or quick things, it's things that our staff will remember, and it's a specific time to say, man, we're thankful for you. These are the things we see in you. So if you see there's a rhythm of it, even at 5 years. And then I hope that's also bleeding down into our individual teams, that's just part of our culture. But little things like that encourage people to think about how they can encourage each other.
That's a really big deal. Socks are kind of a big deal, and brands are a massive deal.
Yeah.
We take our time with that. We read each one of those words and talk about them, pray for them, thank God for them, and really, really cheer for them. And do you want to talk about, I know you're still bitter about my brand. It's still, you wake up every morning, it's the first thing you think of. I know it is.
Is this the one where you got told you're the funniest guy on staff? That one stung. And I didn't know if those people were of sound mind. Let's just say that.
You're supposed to be encouraging. You're supposed to.
Oh, yeah. I was like, he is the funniest guy on staff. We all think so. Mm-hmm.
That's the best day. I've been to this place forever, and I looked at Bron, and I was like, "There you go, buddy. Something to aim for."
There you go.
And so I think on our best days, anyway, that trickles down to all of our teams. Hey, we'll start a team meeting. Where did you see someone excel? Where were you encouraged? Where did you see God use this person? Something like that. And it cost nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It cost nothing to be encouraging. And that's where you'd want to work. Mm-hmm. And if you're a leader, if you have any type of influence whatsoever, you can do that. And it's the kind of thing that what makes people want to work, to invest, and bring their best in.
John, three P's with that could be real simple to think about. Practice encouragement, be purposeful with encouragement, and have plenty of it.
I love it.
And I would just say, we already see that if we're not thinking about it, we will get in the habit of not being encouraging. We will not have a rhythm with it. And so we've had to be real intentional with that.
I love it. Okay, let's jump to another kind of issue that you were trying to address. Guys, Bron, you said that ministry can be heavy, and we want to create a culture that both bears burdens but also has levity. Yeah. So talk about kind of the problem and then how you think about the solution culturally.
Yeah, I'm going to let Joey talk about the fun side, the levity side, but I want to talk about the heavy side. And what I mean by that is just not only ministry can be heavy, but life can be heavy. And we have a staff that's pretty good size, and whatever size your staff is, if you go around that room and you had an opportunity for people to share, hey, what's been heavy on your heart? Is there anything we can be praying for you about? You're going to find out that there's a lot going on in people's lives, and ministry and life cross over a lot. And so we're trying to make room for that. And I always think of this last year, one of our staff, her name's Amy Bradley, and her daughter was diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And she came to our staff, and I mean, it was, of course, just a shock and a train wreck of a situation for them, really, really hard. And what happened is our staff became family for her. not only did her community group rally around her, but our staff was an extension of her family and her community. And so examples of that are, hey, there's a cooler of meals for the week on her porch that night. They find out that day their meals are taken care of. The staff team that she's on changed their whole day and went and just spent time as a team praying and called her and said, this is what we're doing. We're praying for you. We care about you. And it was such a crazy time in her life. And I love that all of a sudden we got a chance as a staff and a family to say, hey, when those kind of things happen, we are running to the fire and we're going to be there in addition to your community group and the church as a whole. Staff specifically was really a blessing to her and her family. So that's an example of where I think about, look for opportunities, ask the question. Mm-hmm. Hey, what's going on at home right now that could be hard? Does anybody need prayer? We did a staff prayer where we just went into the chapel, we worshiped, and at the end, Blake just said, is there anybody right now that just needs to stand up and say, I need prayer? There's something really heavy or hard going on in my life right now. Yeah. And several from our staff did, and we rallied around them. A simple act like that, but it was very meaningful and very thing that bonded our staff.
Yeah, that's right. So those are things that we would always do, in the church context for the congregation, for other people. But sometimes in churches, we don't do that for each other. Mm-hmm. And, so we're not in a small group together. We're not, quote unquote, technically family. But it should be an incredible means of grace to be on this broader staff, be on an individual team. And again, I would say, of course we do have some misses, but on our best days, we love people like Amy, and so and when Amy thinks about this place, it's not just her job, it's not her functions, it's not her roles and responsibilities. She thinks about this as an incredible place, a means of grace where she's loved and cared for and valued. And, who knows what God has for her in the long run, but she's not thinking about how can I get off this boat, right? This is a place that she loves. And so that's on the big ones. And then also just the small ones of, medical things that are going on, parents, kids, just whatever is bringing about anxiety. And it doesn't take long, but you can be aware and you can encourage each other, and you can bear one another's burdens. And again, we would do that for the parishioners. So oftentimes we just don't do that for ourselves. And we don't sit around, it's not like we just shut the offices and sit around in a circle and talk about our feelings all day. No, we don't. I mean, I feel like we work hard, but there is that piece it's one of the reasons I love working here. Yeah. It's the way that we do bear each other's burdens. So, Joe, you want to talk about just kind of levity and what we do? Again, so it's hard. We work hard. We see a lot of hard things. We laugh. It doesn't mean that those things aren't hard or we make light of them. But sometimes it is good just to laugh and have fun. So talk about that.
Yeah, I think we probably honestly don't prioritize it enough of going, hey, let's make some space for fun, make some space to laugh, because it is in ministry. You're going to see a ton of heavy. And if you're not careful, you'll get caught up in the heavy and look up and go, man, we haven't had fun in 6 months. And so I've loved our leadership and them giving us a little bit of a leash to go, hey, go create fun and go make room for fun. And so one of the things that I probably go back to a lot with my specific team is Ecclesiastes 3 and just going, man, I've seen no better thing than a man to enjoy his work, for that's his lot. And I go, hey, enjoy is in there for a reason. Yeah. And so let's go do it. And so one of the things we do every year is we do at least one staff play day, which is something I think we probably look forward to a lot more than the staff, because it's like we're getting to ideate around it and probably have more laughs and become really less productive than we should be. But it's like, hey, let's create some fun for them. And something we did this year is we went to a baseball game, but before we left, having that bigger space in our lobby, took advantage of it and said, why don't we have a wiffle ball home run derby? And so
wheels off,
literally wheels off. I mean, Braun and I getting to go out there and we'll call it testing the space. And so Braun and I are hitting wiffle balls at innocent patrons trying. So
that didn't make sense.
To get some work.
That we have a really large, it's a beautiful lobby. Lots of sunlight, which also houses a coffee shop that's open to the public. So at any given time, you're just going to see, 100 people in there having coffee, having meetings, some having very, very serious pastoral
conversations.
And then you two jokers show up with a bunch of plastic and just start going to town. Yeah.
And Joey was hitting dingers. Okay. I don't really
Top
hit
shelf.
the ball. He was hitting stuff in the upper decks where guys are like getting ready to sell like 200 shares of some stock, and it's whizzing by their head. It's like, the guys are like, what just happened? And I think
They're
we
on
became
conference calls.
less of their favorite coffee shop in Dallas. At that point.
We actually have some great Google reviews.
Yeah.
We did.
We
until you
did,
guys
John.
show up.
Those were the days.
Okay, so we
Now it
did
includes wiffle ball.
we did a big home run derby. It was so fun. Loser had to do what?
Yeah. So one, they didn't have to participate. They got to
challenge by
opt
choice.
in.
Yep.
But the loser of our home run derby, the losing male and the losing female had to dress up like Walker, Texas Ranger, and they had to wear that outfit for the remainder of the day
To the Rangers.
to the Rangers
That's what
game.
Rangers game.
Which is awesome. But I think that's another point. You go back to us hitting balls at the people that are actually sitting in there.
We were trying to hit them. We weren't hitting them.
Well, we weren't hitting
That's
them
what
at them,
happened.
but they were going towards them.
Some did.
It was
But-
for them, not
Yeah.
at them.
It was the show.
Interesting.
for
We've
them.
only done that once. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. But you think about it. I think what was sweet was our staff. I felt like they were intentional to go, hey, thanks for making space for that. Like you created space. But even those people, I had multiple people that asked me later, they were like, do y'all do this often? Like, is this a regular? And it's like, no, not at all. And they made it a point to go, it looks like you guys have a lot of fun working here.
That's
and
right.
so that's the whole goal.
That is right. So we don't do it often, but when
Yeah.
we do, the staff is all in.
Yeah.
And we do make lots of things fun, but we don't hit
Wiffle
hard
balls.
plastic balls
Yeah.
at our coffee patrons often, but the staff does tend to show up and they have fun. And there's the same people that 12 hours before would have been sitting with someone who was in a really, really hard situation and ministering to them or using their gifts to teach scripture. The same people and the same work that has deep meaning and weight to it, and then they laugh, and so that's good. What else, Joey? When you think about just kind of creating a culture of fun and levity on staff,
I think something that's fun. There's some of it that plays into like even some of the recognition from earlier. We did a thing called the Waskers, and that is just like acknowledging people for something that's actually very unique. Like I remember Daniel Merchant getting one that was specific only to his role, and then other people getting things just for being noticed on campus doing various things. And so like pointing out the really funny, but also that carried a lot of weight in the truth that we're sitting around and, there's 250 of us giving out awards to various individuals that it's a recognition thing, but it's like, wow, you guys actually put a lot of energy and time and effort into just going, let's create our own award ceremony once a year for the staff.
It's like 90% of it is a roast.
100%.
And so, I remember one, Joey, where we gave an
I know
award.
where this is going. Here
we
we
gave
go.
an award for people who parked in the wrong place, like consistently. Someone took pictures of one staff person's car that was consistently over like a year parked in the wrong place, and so it was, the delivery was genius. And so they said, hey, the nominees for whatever their award was,
this is my church.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where to park award. The nominees are, and there was a picture behind each one. The nominees are Joey Tisdale. And then there's another picture, and Joey Tisdale, and Joey Tisdale, and Joey Tisdale, and the winner is Joey Tisdale. And
a unanimous vote.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my sides hurt.
Yes.
The team that does that does such a great job. They do it every 2 years, so you have to wait. But it is so funny. It's so funny. We're up. Are we up this year for it?
We are.
Yes, we are.
We are.
It's going to be a good year. Okay. Anything else around levity?
I mean, the thing that I thought about as well is Benson's Bingo Bonanza, like just leveraging the gifts of people on staff. That we had a giant bingo tournament. I guess 2 or 3 years
It's
ago.
going to be hard to translate, but do your best.
Yeah, we got a guy on staff who's a great bingo caller, and so we just
and those are hard to find.
Yeah, those are
I mean, let's be honest. You're not going to
kind of like an auctioneer.
Right now, they're going, there's no way we have a great bingo caller on our staff.
Clearinghouse of great bingo callers. Yes. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, what we did is we created 6 or 7 rounds of bingo, and in between them, we gave out different fun prizes, but just created an opportunity for our whole staff to be playing one game together, facilitated by the staff for the staff, and the staff's getting to have fun with one another. And people, they remember those things. They still bring up bingo all the time, going, "We had so much fun playing that game together."
Yeah, it was. That one is going to be hard to translate and believe it was fun. But I remember going, bingo, really? And
but you don't regret it.
We laughed so hard because of the work that went into that. And those are just a couple examples, I think, and there also is a posture, Braun, he really is very funny and would just bring levity to situations that, staff meetings thing. Most of the time when it's appropriate, I'd use that qualifier most of the time.
90%, 90%.
And it's just fun, and it's fun to laugh. People love to laugh. People love, they love to talk about the place that they invest in. It's like, it's a place that's just fun.
Right. Yeah.
It's fun. We do, of course we do things that matter. I work with gifted people, but we do have a lot of fun. So really good stuff, guys. I think it's a pretty good model. Address some things that might be potential difficulties in the organization and think about how to address them culturally. Oh, actually, okay, that was only 2. We still have one more here, Braun. You talked about ministry can be exhausting, and you wanted to create a culture of healthy rhythms. Tell me what you mean by that.
Yeah, I think with ministry being exhausting, we all understand that and realize there's a lot on our plates, and can have the tendency to look up and be like, man, we have been going really fast, really hard for a long time. And so us just wanting to create a shift and go, man, we want to create rhythms of rest. And you have to be very, I think, self-aware and cognizant of it to carve that out. I think that's where I've loved spending time with Braun, to hear him thinking through, even him talking about sabbatical and other things, to go, man, this takes a major amount of intentionality. Yep. And so as we thought about it, there's 2 things that come to mind. One, our staff retreat. I think a lot of people hear retreat and they're like, that sounds exhausting, because usually they're the ones planning it. They're the ones hosting it. They're the ones putting together all the details. And so how we thought about the staff retreats in the past couple of years is just going, how do we move away from this being really productive to being really restful? How do we make this something that is, they get back from the retreat and they don't need a rest from the rest. They get back and go, I'm excited about the team I'm on and what we got to be a part of. And so one of the things we've done with this, the first night we get to staff retreat, is we spend just about 3 hours together after dinner doing worship. We have people sharing testimonies. We spend time praying together, doing more worship. And so that's kind of the precedent of staff retreat, is that we're going to start with worship and rest, and we're going to do that for the rest of the time that we're there. And then the second thing, I loved what our leadership did a couple of summers ago. They created this thing called Floating 4. And so for one of the months during summer, we had 4 hours once a week to use at our own disposal. They kind of gave us some filters of time with the Lord, time with friends, investing in hobby, and then thinking through ministry objectives. Yep. But we got to spend 4 hours outside of our normal staff meeting time, but just to use that time how we saw fit. And so I remember Braun and a couple of us went and played golf, and it was under the pretense that we're spending time investing in these relationships.
I love the use the word pretense. That might not be the word you're looking for, but we're gonna let it stand.
Well,
yes.
But it was in my mind, it was the pretense if you're going to invest in relationships. You're not just going to invest in a hobby. You're going to invest into these people, in leadership.
John, I think the word he meant was it's under the mirage that we were actually working.
Okay. Anyway, you guys played golf during the day.
We played golf, and
it was awesome.
And y'all were okay with it, and it was awesome.
Yes.
But it really was. It was an intentional time for us to get away, to spend time investing in one another. And what's fun is we're continuing to invest in the mission that we're on. That we're getting to spend some longer relational time with one another, which in my opinion, yes, it's restful, but it also is it's creating equity in these relationships. Yeah. That the people that we're in the trenches with already, we're still having fun, we're being refreshed by one another, and continuing to build trust with one another within those floating fours.
Really good. Yeah, really good. Yeah, it's just been something we've been paying more attention to. Like you mentioned, sabbatical. We've got a new sabbatical policy. Now we did a podcast on that, and there's just been a little bit more of that's probably a dial we need to pay attention to.
Yes.
And we can't just keep asking people to run harder and faster and give more. We need to think about sustainable rhythms.
John, one other thing we did this year was we took a day of just fasting and solitude,
that was really fun.
and we gave the staff the whole day to do that, and then we came together that late afternoon for a dinner together.
Yeah.
So that was another example of spiritual rest as well as physical rest that we're paying attention to.
You only did it once, but it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. So there's 100 different ways you can address that, but do something, right? Do something. So, Bron, as we wrap up, any other thoughts? Anything else you want our listeners to know?
Yeah, I was thinking about if you're on staff somewhere and you're not in charge, and you're going, how do I shift the culture to include some of these things we've been talking about? One of the great things you could do is just ask whoever's over you, just say, hey, would you mind if I took a run at putting something together that I think would be really fun for our staff, really encouraging? Would you mind if I did that? Because most of the time, your direct report's going to say, sure, I'd love for you to think about it. I haven't had a chance to think about something like that. Yeah. And it's a way to lead up in an honoring way. And if they say, sure, take a run, and then you do the work that it takes to create something really great or just put some good thoughts around something, it will be a blessing to your staff. And I think they'll be excited about it. Now, that may not be always true, but I think that's a good way to think about it. If you're going, hey, no one's doing this and our leadership's not thinking about this culture, maybe you could lead up by giving them some good ideas.
That's good. Yeah. So you always want to present, solutions, not just problems. The last thing you want to go do is say, boy, those guys sound like they have a great time and they're all these sustainable rhythms and they care about each other. My place, why don't we do that here? Right. Yeah. And you want to talk about solutions, think measured steps. We just gave you our highlight reel. Yeah. But I think that's a really good approach. So
I was going to say to add to that, I think when we're talking through solutions, a tendency is to drift towards, is that in the budget? And I think something I've loved learning from you, Bron, is these things don't have to be expensive. Like that wiffle ball tournament was free. Like we didn't have to do anything to put that on. Creating space for staff to get away for extended time together is free. Like, so these things that we're trying to instill, like to drive culture, doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It actually can be from $0 just to a few. And so thinking through it is just more intentionality, not budget driven. And so I love that we're even encouraged to go think through that, and not necessarily from a monetary standpoint, but intentionality and going to have fun. Doesn't have to be expensive.
So guys, that's really good, really helpful things. Friends, I hope you think about your church, your business. What are people up against? What are some of the challenges they're facing, and what can you do culturally to address those? And you can do something. You might not be able to fix it completely, but you can do a few things, and you could even say out loud, "Hey, I want to create a culture that's more encouraging." I feel like a lot of times we put everybody under the microscope. We've got a really high-performing organization, which is great. I want to keep that, but I just want to make sure that we are encouraging. So say that out loud. You model it, and then if you can, you take a few actions that are a little bit bigger and just kind of hit repeat and do them over and over and over again. And then you'll create a place that you love to work, your friends want to work, and then when it comes time to add someone to the team, they're all going to want their friends to join you. And so we do that not just so that we can be self-actualized at work, but because what we do matters so much. And you get this right, and you will see the results that you're going after, the things that matter so much. You will see those needles start to move. So guys, thanks so much for joining us. Friends, thanks always for your time. If you have any questions or comments, you can always reach us at clp@watermark.org. That's clp@watermark.org. We'll talk to you again next time.